is the difference between an addict and someone who is sexually active?
All right. That's a great question.
Great question, and a lot of differences. Who wants to play with this one?
We'll just sit here and stare at each other, I guess, is what we're going to do. Well, I'll just say, I think our field is the mental health field is split on this question. So I don't think there is a universal answer to it because we have so many different definitions. I'll just say, I think one of the biggest hallmarks about an addiction, it's not really about the frequency of behaviors. It's not, again, not how much someone does something or the behaviors themselves necessarily that creates the addiction. It's, does it create is it something that someone's doing creates negative consequences for them? Does their preoccupation and obsession with it, they lose control over the behaviors? To me, those are hallmarks of an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you guys add?
I was thinking ICD and the new diagnosis that's coming our way of compulsive sexual behavior, and how that's going to create a unifying definition. I would also say to the listeners of, hey, there's lots of other podcasts that we have about what is sex addiction. And so please do check that out as well. Wendy?
Yeah, Jeannie's referring to, when she says the DSM, she's referring to the diagnostic manual for mental health disorders. And so right now there is a code for alcoholism, for compulsive gambling, for compulsive eating, but there isn't a code yet for a sex addiction as such. So, right? Is that what you were referring to?
I was referring to the ICD.
Oh, ICD, sorry.
Which is the Diagnostic
World Health Organization.
From the World Health Organization that eventually will get into our DSM, which is the American version, the manual of diagnoses. So,
oh, great.
But okay. that unifying question. I would go with what Dan said: compulsivity, obsessive, loss of time, continuation despite consequences. There's all different pieces to what makes an addiction versus a behavior one engages with.
Right. This has come up a lot recently is, I don't know if I'm a sex addict. I don't know if sex addiction is actually a thing. And so I've come back around to these folks and just said, look, I don't care what we call it. Listen, I don't care what we call it. Is it harming you? Dovetailing on what Dan said, is it harming you? Is it harming others? Is it a behavior you've tried to stop and you can't stop? Is it in the frequency, because it can come in spurts, right? It can come on just weekends or intermittently. So that's one of the confusing parts about this phenomenon. But the biggest piece is it causing you harm? Is it causing others harm? I think. And do you want to stop? So call it whatever you want. What was the term they asked? Sex addiction versus what is
sexually active.
It's sexually active. So a lot of people are sexually active. It works for them and it's fine. So people can be polyamorous, and if that type of lifestyle works for them, and everything's okay and everyone's okay.
That's to me, I think, a key thing. Most addicts keep their sexual behaviors hidden. There's a secrecy piece of it. There's a shame that's involved, or at least they don't want to be found out. So it's not overt. It's not expressed, it's not in the relationship and they've discussed it as a dyad or couple. It's stuff that was done non-consensually.
Without consent and secretive.
Yeah.
So next question. If somebody gets labeled as a sex addict, is that just giving them an excuse? Is that just sort of giving someone a pass for behaving badly?
I hear that question a lot. I'm glad that question got asked.
I would say absolutely no. As soon as somebody takes on, and says I'm a sex addict, that's where the real work begins.